Tonight, I want to introduce my special guest, Laura Leon, Sovereign Key. She is a most dynamic individual. I had her on my YouTube channel Friday night, and not only was I just absolutely blown away, but the audience was. Welcome, Laura. Thank you to the Steiger perspective. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Wayne, and thanks, everybody.
Well, I'm just so glad you decided to come on in such short notice, and you were so gracious. And, you know, Laura, there is some synergies going on, and you and I talked right before we went live here, and you and I were talking on what has to be, I think, one of the biggest shifts in humanity's consciousness in the last 2,000 years. So, Laura, the story is breaking off of CNSnews.com, and the lead-in story is a blog written by a gentleman by the name of Michael W. Chapman, posted today, 10:45 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And, Laura, here is what's absolutely sending ripples throughout the Christian world, and I would say beyond that. The Pope has made the announcement that there is no hell. That apparently you either go two directions, Laura. You're either going to be one where you've asked for forgiveness and you go to a place where you do, basically for eternity, you contemplate God. The other place is where that doesn't exist. It's bad, where bad souls go, supposedly. And guess what, Laura? You just absolutely disappear. So, thoughts on this? Yeah.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Well, let's get into it then.
Actually, I've been waiting for this to happen.
Oh, have you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been waiting for this for a long, long time. It was inevitable that the Pope, a.k.a. Catholicism at large, would have to revamp what previously was being sold to people as truth, because everybody's consciousness is expanding and we are seeing through things, and people are not as gullible as they were in the past. So if they continued going the way that they were previously, it would end up really bad for them. And so I think that they themselves have been waiting to be able to do this as well, because in essence they want to maintain control, and who and what the Pope really is and what really the Pope is connected to and what that represents has a lot to do with the stakes that they have in this whole game, right? So they're, when the Pope said, oh, there's no hell, that souls either disappear or they go into the, quote,
contemplation of God.
Right, the contemplation of God. But that really just, this is really just another aspect of the same kind of mind control, only it's just a different version, right? Now they're saying there's no hell because people are getting very smart and they're tapping into their spirit and they're able to find the answers for themselves without having to go to something like Catholicism or something like, somebody else telling you what the truth is. People are being able to navigate their own spirit. And so we know that the mind is made manifest, and this is really the nature of how reality just becomes matter, right? So what do you say to people when you know that this whole, we can create as many hells as we want, and we have a place that we live in that is testament to that, but really it's just our creation. So if you want to believe it and you want to create it and you want to put yourself there, that's where you're going to go. So now what he's doing is he's saying, oh no, wait a minute here. You're going to go to a place that you're either going to contemplate God for the rest of your eternity, or you're just going to disappear. So this is robbing people. I know, this is crazy. This is robbing people again. This is bamboozling everybody. I'm sure if you think about it, now there are beings you know, I'm always really careful to discuss this, but there are beings who don't have, quote, the original spirit in them. There are very many different kinds, and so some would have one lifetime experience here, and they would transfer into ether. So energy you can't ever get rid of energy. So, once you exist, you have just changed form in what the energy is and becomes. So these people that aren't the originals, let's say the ones that may not have like the pure soul, and there's many types. I mean, we know that golems have been created and all manner of, the Gnostics speak about a lot of this, as well as AI. We were talking about Gilgamesh before. So we know that some of these beings who don't have the original spirit, let's say even an artificial biological version, would have a one-time experience here. And when they leave the one-time experience here, they would basically dissipate into the ether. That is a whole different thing. That is a whole different topic than what the Pope is saying. The Pope is saying you get two. You still have to believe in what they tell you, and if you do, then guess what? You get to go to this happy place where you get to contemplate God, or you're just going to disappear. So anything else that is outside of that construct doesn't exist. This is utter manipulation.
And I can tell you, I did this story. I broke the story on my YouTube channel. And, Laura, the great thing about when you have something that's in the social media space and you see where people can comment, if you were studying to be a sociologist, you have your thesis right there. And totally. And this has been up, I think, less than 5 hours. It's gotten nearly 1,500 views and already over 130 comments. And this is what I'm finding, Laura. There is a huge cognitive disconnect taking place right now. I'm reading comments that one person wrote, "What is going on? This can't be the same world." Another person wrote, "I'm really becoming scared. This is not making sense." So we're seeing, Laura, in essence, listen, if this is what the energy wave was coming or whatever, this has turned nearly 1 billion people upside down.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Absolutely. For those that wouldn't even have been ready for anything like this, this would be literally crumbling their world, and they would be in a space where they're not even sure what the world is anymore. Not that anybody else is, but this is a very it is very dangerous to even. I'm a little bit amazed and surprised because I would have come up with a much better version.
I mean, come on, you go and I quote. There is no hell. There is the disappearance of sinful souls. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah, that's almost, I know.
I'm sitting here. I mean, the Catholic Church, let's just look at it. They have invested 2 millennia in cementing the story, the psyche. You're either going to go to heaven, purgatory, or hell, according to the Catholics. And then we had the Great Schism of 1514, where the Protestant movement. But here's the deal. It's still affecting 1.2, well, I think the count is 1.4 billion people that subscribe to the Christian religion. Now you're telling them, well, there's no hell. And suddenly people are taking the attitude like going crazy in the streets. One person wrote, well, what's going to stop people from sinning? And I went, what? So what's happening here? I mean, it's something that is, this guy also admitted that there was alien life, extraterrestrials. And get this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Tell me.
Well, what I found so interesting is what he also wrote. He said in this interview, the individual who is writing this, it says, "Your Holiness, in our previous meetings, you told me that our species will disappear in a certain moment and that God, still out of his creative force, will create a new species. What? What is going on here?
This is the inversion version. So this is attached, and according to the things that I've been shown and that I saw, this player, a.k.a. the what the Vatican represents and the Pope, they will be merging with the governments of the world. They will be merging literally with the, quote, New World Order. I actually was shown that it was a different word than a New World Order, but they will be merging with that. And so it is a part of the inversion and this super upgraded quantum version of reality that they are doing with the 5G, which is actually, the 5G is only the beginning of it, because it is alongside the metal god, right? So what you're going to be seeing is like such a sophisticated version of reality that it far exceeds our 3D that we come from, that is going to be more of a 3-4D, right? And this is going to be almost imperceptible in terms of the difference between it and what is actually real and original. So this, and what he does, what he's representing is actually the negative aspect of what all of the demiurgic control systems are with the Matrix and all of it. This is not the real, quote, creator, if you know, outside the box. This is not, this has nothing to do with that. This is still various levels of containment systems, only it's going to be, it's much more sophisticated to match people's consciousness. And what he's talking about, where, you know, I speak about the great splitting and the great becoming. So it's almost like, and this is my take on it, it's almost like he is trying to create the counterfeit version of that to sell it to people, so that they, instead of the great becoming and the great splitting, which is the convergence of the event horizon that is happening, everything is converging into this very center cell. And the cells are splitting into two cells, where like the positive and the negative are going to create their own world. So this is like the counterfeit inversion of it.
Do you think that, you know, I've been following the D-Wave computing phenomenon, and I was quite alarmed when they announced 2 years ago that they have already accomplished going into other dimensions and bringing substance back into ours. And there is a thought that what we're seeing are basically waves affecting our timeline, our reality. Do you think that has a role in this? Because listen, I'm 62 years old, Laura, and I'm sitting here, and I'm witnessing something that I never thought I would hear. So something definitely is going on.
It definitely has something to do with it, but because this is the counterfeit version, let's just say, I'm going to simplify it, and I'm going to say, okay, the real version, the real wave, which is a part of the convergence, right? The wave is a macro wave that within it has micro waves, right? And the smaller versions of the waves are coming in ripples constantly. And those ripples are upgrading us and helping us to expand our consciousness and our genetics to meet what's happening in the great splitting and the becoming. So what's happening is the Pope is representative of this, you know, the Vatican and the force that really is behind that. And we can, you know, that's a whole different topic, but they know all of the information that's coming out, and they know that there are, you know, quite a few of us spread throughout the world who've been shown all this prior, and they're trying to counter this because this is about souls for them, and they represent a force, a frequency that is interested in the synthetic version of reality to contain souls and to keep souls contained in it. So this is what this is about. Now, they know about the wave. They know it's here. It started entering in 2008 and really started making an impact in 2009, where everybody had evidence in their life of it, even if they knew or didn't know what it was. Now, this is, again, this is just the counterfeit version of the truth. And why is it the counterfeit version of the truth? Well, then we have to ask ourselves, what really is the Pope? Who is the Pope really representing? Okay, and the Vatican. What is that really in this game? Who are
what is it they represent? Because it's obviously a major piece on the chessboard.
Yeah, I think if people start doing some research into this and they start looking at even the photos of their inner sanctums and just the it's horrifying. It's really horrifying. Some of these sculptures that you see, it's steeped in esoteric inversion completely. So for me, I'm looking at a frequency that is, has been very much allied with the, quote, demiurgic Luciferian or the satanic inversion. It's all inverted. It's all the inverted energy.
I would call it antimatter.
Right. It's the anti-verse. It's the anti-creation. We're going to change whatever we need to match people's consciousness so that we can find another more sophisticated way to trap you. So now that we know that hell is antiquated because everybody is figuring this all out and they're starting to think for themselves, we're just going to create a deeper, more elaborate trap. Now we're going to tell you that unless you still follow us, if you don't follow us, you're just going to disappear. You're going to be no more. And this is ridiculous because it's like it's in complete denial of actually everything that's going on here. It's simplifying it to you believe us and then you're saved again, right? You believe us, you're saved. You go to this place. You don't believe us, guess what? You're just going to be obliterated. How about that?
Yeah.
And there's nothing about the artificial agenda which is connected to this all. Because, he also was talking about these new beings. Well, who are these new beings when we've been upgraded to this? Right, the new species. Well, who is that? Consider we've been upgraded to this new, much more sophisticated version of a simulation. Who are these? Well, you know what? This is again the emergence of the biological being merging with the artificial. So that's what he's talking about, so that everybody can just be in the same mind of God.
Yes.
This is like the computer system is God.
Resistance is futile. As you were talking, I saw within myself as you were talking. So when I see the church, the Vatican, and you have to look at symbols, this is how I look at it, they have dominated the world for the last 2,000 years and literally dominated the world. And so obviously something is happening to where these world powers, they have to know something's coming or already here.
Yes, they do. And they've been waiting for it. They've been waiting for it this entire time.
Well, you actually wrote a blog on that, so I happen to agree with you because it makes sense. I remember when we were looking at, I guess it was back in 2012, everyone thought that the military was being set up and there was something really going on. And I think literally, they knew that there was a timeline, and I think that they have been arranging pieces to meet this, what would you call it, this binary system that's most likely coming in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's binary.
Let's talk about that.
It's actually, I mean, physically speaking, it looks like a binary system, but it's actually trinary or tertiary. because the system is attached to a completely new level of being. So this is going to be what is going to cause the splitting, so that the divide between these two essential opposite frequencies, you could call it a negative and a positive, occur. So, yeah, it's. I mean, we can get into the.
We're seeing censorship already. We're seeing censorship in the internet. Go ahead.
So they knew this was coming, and they, of course, they have a lot of insiders that. They run the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, they do.
They like to think, or they like to represent themselves in a way that they're not really in the front line, but they're equally as in the front line as the government, as players, although they are still puppets, right, to something greater. But
sure,
they knew, and they have been, just like a chessboard, they have just literally been corralling the world at large, society, literally in every way you can imagine, so that, cattle is corralled through to get them to go to exactly where they want to go for the slaughter. It's the same thing. These pieces have been moved in order to get it to be exactly where they are today. And they knew as well that the energies that were going to be coming in here with the wave were going to be accelerating people's consciousness and helping people to literally break out of their confines. So knowing that, they knew in advance what they had to do.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Laura, is that as we see the effect, and I think we're seeing it already, I cannot help but not contemplate as well, is that amongst our species, Homo sapiens, people, I think there's going to be a certain portion of that that's going to have the opposite effect, that instead of expanding one's consciousness...
Yes,
go ahead.
That's the negative and the positive that I refer to in the splitting, because the negative is basically all of the consciousness that refuses to move and refuses to accept what's happening. So, and continue to proliferate the negative mandate of existence, right? Which is basically following the laws of anti-creation. So, what's going to happen is it's going to get worse for them, and it's going to get better for the positive aspect. Those of us who are accelerating and allowing ourselves to grow with the expansion that's happening. But the divide is huge, and it's massive.
Look at our country, the United States.
Yeah.
Every election here, that since the Trump election, in every state, it's literally 49.6 or 49.3. I've never seen it, Laura, in my lifetime, where you have a nation, a society, that is so split down the middle.
Yeah, it's massive. And that's a good thing to actually finally be able to see that, because we know that government is a sham, okay? They are also, that whole thing is equally just as false as, and they're being moved because they're the puppets that are being told what to do. So the fact that that's happening is also a testimony that people are going outside of that and seeing it for what it is and questioning it, and they're no longer they're not accepting what they're told. So we're going to be seeing a lot of incredibly interesting things. And I feel that what's happening because of what we were discussing about the split, both the negative and the positive, where people will there's a great divide in the sand occurring. And eventually that divide is going to span and break completely, so that you're going to get two completely separate cells of existence. And it's going to be like two universes. And one is going to be the anti-verse, and one is going to be the actual verse. So, and neither can contain. We're having a difficult time as it is with the two frequencies being side by side anymore. People are finding that what they could tolerate in the past, they couldn't anymore. So it isn't doable anymore. Everything has changed.
I was going to say everything. Everything I know is being affected.
Exactly.
I'm seeing, whether it's relationships, whether it's business, whether it's the geopolitical stage, you cannot help but not sense something.
Exactly. And a lot of what is occurring and happening within people at this stage is that many who are of the light, let's say, I don't like using those terms, I just don't know what else to use. So those that are of the original and they're really, really accelerating and they're doing phenomenally and they're getting their power back, many are experiencing relationships where they're with somebody who is doing the opposite or maybe representing the opposite energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenges that people are being faced with, whether it's in a relationship or, like you said, at work or whatever, this is coming out in a way that can't be denied anymore. It can't be buried, and you can't be like, well, I can understand it or I'll justify it. We're going to have to see that some of these energies are there so that we can make a choice for our spirit to really, really move and accelerate ourselves into what we know is true and what we are in our own becoming, or we're going to be stifled and we're going to be pulled down.
Yeah. I did a program on, do we possess a soul? Define the soul. I know we have a spirit. That's immortal. It's and I try to tell people so often, Laura, is that we have to begin to get out of this. You see, I think that if we have a soul, it's one that we got it coming into this temporal plane, and I think it's going to leave us when we exit out.
Yeah, and I think it's also the soul, when we entered this plane, it has been something that has been tweaked and augmented in order to suit the synthetic version. So in essence, it is a kind of technology. And
well put.
This is where the memories of this, quote, the lives that we have lived in this false, simulated, counterfeit system is connected to the soul. So the memories are connected to that, not so much to the spirit, because we're outside of it all, and the spirit never was a part of any of this. This is just, this is a journey that we're on. And maybe, yes, we told ourselves this is exactly where we needed to go because, and that's another topic that's fully loaded, but there are no accidents.
I get the sense that I almost came here with a mission and with a purpose. It's almost like I have this sense. I told people today over on my channel that I got this sense, Laura, that I'm a part of something else. You can call it a pod, you can call it a tribe, a family. I don't know what it is, but it's almost as if I'm doing this as, I know this sounds weird, but challenging myself, knowing the gauntlet that we've got here. Okay, thank you. That help us on that a little bit. What's going on here then? What are we sensing?
Yeah, like I said, there's no accident and there's no coincidences. So the sense that you have that this is the greatest challenge that you could have posed for yourself has everything to do with your becoming. And your becoming has everything to do with what you were in origin and are, right? So now, when we speak about time, again, right, time doesn't exist. We experience all things simultaneously. So even if we talk about, let's say, for example, if you experience life in Atlantis, or Atlantara, actually is what I call it, if you experience life in Lemuria, Amumu, if you experience anything, even though it happened back then, it's happened all simultaneously in the now. But that being said, the moment that you sparked into being and, came out of the deep, at that moment, everything was already unveiled. And in essence, that became the first separation that we had from ourselves and the first separation between the universe itself, or the multiverse, or the infiniverse. When that occurred, that's sort of when everything spiraled into matter. Everything became an experience that we had to go through. And in essence, we had to experience everything, right? In order for us to experience everything, it's almost like we have to go backwards to return to the point and to the place where we were already. And that's what I call the becoming. Because the becoming is really about, going through this all to return to the place that you already were everything and already are everything, because you already are now. The only difference is you don't have the remembrance. So you gave yourself that challenge, knowing that challenge would make you the everything that you are. And why? Because you already are. And I feel that this system in particular, which is all about imprisonment, is almost the most extreme experience that we could ever have, because as soon as you have dichotomy, as soon as you have love, you have to have hate, right? So
if one is going to be existing.
Right. So as soon as you're in creation and you're in matter and you experience any realm, you're going to have those extremes, but you can't return to what you are unless you've gone through it all. And in this way, this is how many people have been remembering over lifetimes. And it's a very unfortunate thing that we've had to do it this way, but that is the nature of existence. And I think that this, where we are in particular, I think this is the inverse, okay? I think we are literally living, and we have chosen to be in the inverse, which means that this is the reason why we're fighting for creation itself, because we're fighting forces here that have everything to do with anti-creation. So we're fighting anti-matter, or dark matter versus light matter.
Yeah, and it's so... And I just want to bring to the audience's attention, what Laura's speaking is exactly what this individual who made this revelation to the world, and I'm rereading his words again, Laura, and it's amazing. He says, he said, our species will disappear in a certain moment, and that God, and here's the key, steal out of his creative force.
Wow.
Almost verbatim what you just said, and so eloquently explaining what's going on here. Wow, this is serious mind coitus.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt about it. Because the moment that he's referring to, where he's saying at that very moment that there's going to be, it's almost like a flash of a light, and everything's going to be different, right? So this is really when the cells complete their splitting, and you have the two universes back to back. One is going to literally be the antimatter, the anti-creation universe, and the other one's going to be creation universe, because neither will be able to, they won't be able to exist at all. So this is going to be renting, like it's going to rent the universe in half, essentially. But this is also in the becoming and the new earth that I speak about, that I was shown, is the creative universe, where people will actually be able to live finally outside of the containment systems, so that they're able to actually be everything that they are. And that is, everybody's journeying towards the becoming of remembering what you already are. But you can't, every force that is in control here is working against everything. Yeah. But at the same time, even though it's working against everything, it's actually through the law of, being oppressed, through the law of pushing you to the very, very max of everything. It's almost igniting your metagenes.
Ooh, good point. I get the sense, Laura, that help me on this. I get the sense that we are far more powerful. Granted, yes, there are forces that are above us that we can't see or perceive. We can see and feel their impact. We see that. We get that. But I cannot help but to think there is something very special about us down here, because they certainly give us a lot of attention.
Absolutely, yeah. I would think, and my feeling is, before I came here, it was critical. It was a critical concern throughout the entire universe to send people here for this very thing that's happening, that we're witnessing, and to help. And the call came out everywhere in the universe, basically, and there was a collection of people, beings, that came forward and said, yeah, that they'll do it, even though it was the most dangerous thing ever. This is the most dangerous mission going. This is the most dangerous place in existence, to my remembrance of everything there. So when that happened, it was because there is such a great love for the creation that is here, because the creation that is here is it is most unique. And I want to say it's like, the Holy Grail of creation itself. It is where everything found its way here. It is where the expression of creation itself manifested at the beginning and ended up here. This is something extremely unique. And in that which is within us, and that we come from, it's everything in us. It's not one part or two parts, it's everything. So the creation, or the creator itself, and we are that ourselves, we are the emanation spark of the all spark, as I say, doesn't want to lose this, because this is really the beginning of it all. And this is where it all takes place inside us. And there are no limits within us. Therefore, because there are no limits within us, and because we are the all, and we are everything that has been in creation from the beginning, then we can be everywhere at the same time, simultaneously, just like our creator, or the creation.
Yeah.
So this is critical that we take a hold of our abilities, of our being, of our unlimited nature, and recognize who and what we are, and stand in our sovereignty and in our authority as the beings that we are, because it is us, essentially, that can create anything. So as coming from a creator being, and we are creator beings, we can create. So there is no need anymore to be in a containment system that has to do with something else's creation. There's no more need for that at all. Now it's about time that people step into exactly their unlimited potential. And creation doesn't want to lose unlimited potential that is from the original spark of creation, the original creator essence, which we are.
Yes.
So this is our story. We are like the mind of God, expressing ourselves in matter.
Oh, that is so elegant. I tell my listeners that, Laura, in the last 2 years, I've found something. And what I have found is the ability to begin to search my spirit. And you know what I have found? It has no end.
No,
I can't find any boundaries. No matter how much I search with my mind, my mind knows that it is all consumed in my spirit. And I look, I can't find an end to it. So it resonates with me, what you are saying.
And now, knowing that, now you have to take the energy, because everything is a frequency. You're a frequency, I'm a frequency, we are pure energy. Now we have to take that and start controlling our matter. Start reversing the overlays that have been done, that have been stealing our life here, so that we can dictate what our life is. Because, as we said, there is no such thing as really, I mean, the overlays are aging, death, disease, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But none of that really exists. So now we have to take what we know to be true, and we have to basically begin walking on water.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I said to this, it's so odd that we're having this conversation talking about synergy. I mean, it's like that movie, Get Out of My Head, man. But I know, it's so funny. But, you know, when you think about how we have this creative ability, and I want to express this. So what I have begun to learn is, first of all, when I have thoughts that I know I have a decision as to how I want that energy to flow, I can either reject it and say, nope, I have a compass that is true and set. And it's becoming stronger and stronger. And here's the other thing I wanted to bring out. When I was a child, and I bet you it's the same thing with you, Laura, and it's probably with a lot of people who are listening, and particularly when I was in the second grade, I was reprimanded quite often because my teacher would literally catch me daydreaming. Many a time she would come up and rap my knuckles and say, Wayne, just where were you? I never realized that I was actually astral projecting.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this among certain children that have that ability. Thoughts on that? Because I think we lost that ability.
Absolutely.
Or we lost the understanding.
Well, it's because the program here is what comes in and says to you when you're a kid, Wayne, stop fantasizing. Okay?
Exactly.
So really what's that is teaching you that what you're doing isn't real. And that's completely an absolute program to rob you of what is actually very real.
Wow.
Now, if you had somebody who was endowed with wisdom, they would come in and they would encourage you. They would say, Wayne, that is amazing. You continue and you start really harnessing that energy, everything that you're seeing and experiencing, and you just go and expand as much as you can. And if you did that, as you would grow up, your abilities would be compounded.
Yeah.
You would actually it would be natural for you to want to start utilizing your kinetic ability, to start moving things with your mind. You would be in the realm of what is really real.
Interesting.
And you would be in control. Yes. But the program is to steal that and make you think it's a fantasy, so that you literally walk away from the control center, the seat, the very seat of all of your gifts.
Laura, as you're talking, go ahead, hon.
Well, and the gifts have everything to do with you actually dismantling what is synthetic and simulated here. Your gifts would actually be like, in the Matrix where they move the spoon, the kid moves the spoon because there is no spoon.
Right.
So you would be that kid because you are that kid. So that is such a powerful force, because then you would start seeing that children are levitating, children are doing the things that are actually natural to us. And there wouldn't be a construct that comes in and puts a net over you and then keeps you netted down so that you don't ever expand it.
They hit us right from the beginning, don't they? Right at that critical point.
Totally.
Right. Oh, my. Go ahead. That just pisses me off.
I know. And then when they do that, there's a chemical reaction and a hormonal reaction that happens in your physical body, in your matter, right? Because this is an attack against your matter and your frequency ability to overcome matter, right? So they hit you physically. So chemically and hormonally, there's a change that begins to take place internally. And these chemicals start literally, and these hormones start literally aligning themselves with the neurology of the matrix.
It's, wow, and I'm seeing right now, it's like graphene. It literally. Yeah.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They literally take it away from us.
Absolutely. It's a horrifying program that has stolen. I can't even go into the levels of what it's stolen. It's so severe. Yeah, it's so severe. I mean, people would be healing themselves. They would be resistant to disease. They would be resistant to bacteria naturally. They would be resistant to all manner of invasions if you were allowed to be what you were. And as a child, you already knew it. So what you were doing when you were a kid is that you were just being you were starting to, feel around it and get to know it and learn it and learn how to travel through it. And, it was just incredible. So if you would have kept going, you would have had all the tools you need to prevent further invasion.
6 years old. I'm living in Santa Clara, and I'm in my grandparents' I was living with my grandparents. My dad was in the Air Force. And I had many experiences where, and I know this sounds weird, but this is what it was, where I was literally immersed into a color. I could feel it. It was everywhere around me. I wasn't even in my body. And my grandmother would come in many times, and again, I was off in this distance. And now I'm understanding what was going on.
Exactly. But yet nobody was around you who would be able to encourage you or even see, because everybody it's done to them. So what's been done to you has been done to them, and it was done to their parents and then their parents. And this is basically a self-running machine. It's a self-running software that just, by virtue of people being born into the family, it just keeps continuing.
Well, you've seen that future. Where are we going with this? I can't help but sense, as the famous line of an actor said, my days ahead of me are fewer than those that I have behind me. And, you just begin to understand this. But now I'm also seeing how we could have come in and mastered these bodies in a manner, in a place that, or we could be living to 4 or 5. We could probably live as long as we really wanted to.
Oh, unlimited.
Unlimited.
Yeah.
I was telling people today, the average person lives about 28,000 days. And that's not a long time. But it's a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When you're imprisoned, that's a long time. When you're kept from your own self, that's a long time. When you've been given amnesia and you're in a hamster wheel, that's a long time. But when you're truly when you're truly yourself, that is a nothing. That's like that's just a tiny, tiny little bit of everything that you can be in matter, because death is an illusion. It just doesn't exist. I mean, the overlay has literally created, they spliced our DNA. They've spliced what they needed, and then they put these programs in there, and they're all death programs. But if you remove it all, and if you get to the point where you can just do it yourself, I mean, there are people who've done that. You just keep self-generating. It's just a constant state of regeneration, exploration, expansion. And then the earth itself has to grow with you, because that, as our consciousness expands, her consciousness. So when we start getting, I don't believe right now anybody's awake, but I believe people are becoming aware. So as people are becoming aware, that Tara herself is becoming aware. So because she's been shackled in the same imprisonment as we have. So the same things that we're experiencing are the same things she is. So you get to the point where, if you don't have any of those chains and those overlays robbing us of exactly every single thing that we actually are, then the earth itself will be able to expand. And you will see that there are many changes that happen to meet that consciousness and that DNA acceleration and expansion. And this is where I think what the Pope is saying is the counterfeit version of that. This is the counterfeit version that is working in opposition to the truth of what is original essence and original expansion. So it's countering the actual convergence of the event horizon and the becoming and the splitting. This is their way to try and create something that will be sophisticated enough to meet people's consciousness as they're becoming aware, but trap them. So that's why it's very important. This is all about sovereignty, right? This is like our remembering, and our gnosis is about remembering, getting back our members that have been removed from us. So in doing so, this is really the story. It's our love story. It's Creator's love story. It's our love story to ourselves of our sovereignty, our authority, and our potential, and what we really, really are and always have been. So even though it's been stolen from us, that doesn't mean anything, really, when you start becoming aware and knowing and remembering, because then there's nothing we cannot get back.
Yeah.
This is, if you can believe it, if I can make you believe something, then I can make it happen. So this is why it works, right? Because that's the magic. If I
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Wayne.
No, you've enlightened me on something. You're talking about the splicing of the DNA, and I hypothesize that the soul, if the soul does exist, would it be existing within our DNA? Because within our DNA, it's unique to each individual, but within it, it contains how many millions of libraries of Congress? They don't know. The more we study, the mitochondrial DNA is apparently more packed with information, and it dawned on me, Laura, that has to be my soul. It has to be my Akashic record.
Yeah, it is, and that's exactly what it is. And it's relegated to just these realms of existence here within these matrices. So it doesn't apply outside, because the Akashic soul remembrance and the repository is just connected to this whole long story that we've lived, with every reset within these containment systems and the labyrinth of, this takeover from the beginning, but it isn't the Akashic it's not relevant outside of it.
Yeah.
And it is. You're absolutely right. It's connected to the soul, the DNA, and basically that story that we've been living.
We have to get you back on. We're almost at the end, but I want to just leave you with this thought. So as I now do my daily mirror gazing and I talk to my body, it dawned on me, the inner voice said, your voice is a frequency and a harmonic. Speak to your genes. You're the one that can unlock the code.
Completely.
So, before we leave, how can people get in touch with you? Your website is sovereignkey.com, right?
Yep.
Okay. And you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, I have YouTube, and that's also Sovereign Key.
Okay.
And my email is sovereignkeys with KEES @gmail.com.
Excellent. And folks, go, and this is a wonderful, wonderful soul with such knowledge and wisdom. I know you do readings, and that's correct. Am I correct on that, Laura?
Yeah, I do spirit whisperer readings. So
okay. Yeah. All right.
And I do shifting. It's just combination of things. So.
Okay. All right. I hate time limits because I got about 30 other things I wanted to talk about. But
I know.
Could I have you back on again?
I'd love to.
All right. It would be just
wonderful.
an honor. All right. Well, folks, Laura, thank you again. You are just a delight every time I talk to you. You got so much energy. I want to thank the Z-Man as producer for the Steiger Perspective, folks. Also, support the Artists First Network. This is a true place where freedom of thought exists without retribution or without hesitation. And it is worthy. It is viewer and listener supported. So make sure you make a donation. Laura, again, thank you so much. And I am going to have you back on. And folks, join me next Thursday night for another edition of the Steiger Perspective. Thank you and have a good week.